Lesson 6.7, Correlation and Causation. Okay, our work with scatter plots and two-way frequency tables showed us correlation. We can have a positive correlation, a negative correlation, or no correlation. But correlation doesn't answer a very important question. Just because two things have a correlation, does that mean one causes the other? Here's a funny cartoon. And once you understand the difference between the two of correlation and causation, this is actually going to be really funny. Correlation occurs when two variables are shown to be related. They can be positive or negative, strong or weak. Here we have perfect positive correlation, high or strong positive correlation, low positive correlation, no correlation, low negative correlation, high negative correlation, and perfect negative correlation. Correlation can also have a value. 1 is a perfect positive, 0 is no correlation, and -1 is a perfect negative correlation, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later in this video. The value shows how good the correlation is. It's not slope, so not how steep the line is. It also shows if the correlation is positive or negative. Even a perfect correlation does not prove one event causes another. So we can show correlations using equations, tables, or graphs. So for example, if we have ice cream sales, a local ice cream shop keeps track of how much ice cream they sell versus the temperature on that day. And we have figures for the last 12 days. This is data set as a table, and this is data set as a scatter plot graph. They both tell the same information. There's something called a correlation coefficient. When you create a scatter plot, you create a line of fit to create a model for the data. Sometimes the line of fit is accurate, and sometimes it's inaccurate. The correlation coefficient is a number that describes how closely the numbers in the data set are related, so the accuracy of our line of fit. The correlation coefficient is always between -1 and 1. As we mentioned earlier, 1 shows a perfect positive correlation, -1 shows a perfect negative correlation, 0 shows no correlation at all, and anything in between shows a varying degree of relatedness. There is no set number that defines the line between a strong and a weak correlation, but the closer the correlation coefficient is to 1 or -1, the stronger the correlation. The closer it is to 0, the weaker the correlation. We have a formula for correlation coefficient, but it's somewhat difficult to calculate by hand. As you can see, this symbol is the sum of all of the x values minus the x average times all of the y values minus the y average, divided by the square root of the sum of all of that squared times the square root of the sum of all the y's squared. But you don't have to calculate the correlation coefficient. It can be calculated on a graphing calculator, in Excel, with other various computer programs, or online, such as sites like this. You have www, it's socialsciencestatistics.com, but it's SOCSCI for social science, /test/Pearson, /default to ASPX. This is a correlation coefficient calculator put out by the book publisher Pearson. Let's look at our ice cream sales again. Using our ice cream example, we can calculate the coefficient to see how strongly the variables are correlated. So I used the calculator located on the Pearson site, and I got the correlation coefficient of R is equal to 0.9575. This is very close to 1, which shows a strong or high positive correlation. That shows that there's a strong connection between the temperature and the number of ice cream sales. Now, this does not prove that the temperature causes an increase in ice cream sales or that an increase in ice cream sales raises the temperature. It just shows that there's a strong relationship between those two numbers. The definition of correlation is a mutual relationship or connection between two or more things. This can be found with a lot of data. And some of these things have absolutely nothing to do with each other. For example, there's a correlation between Internet Explorer use and murder rates. These things have absolutely nothing to do with one another, but you can, using the data, show a connection. Causation. Causation is the action of causing something, the relationship between cause and effect, or causality. Okay, when you're talking about causation, this is one thing causes another. So, for example, rain causes things to get wet. So you have a definite connection there. But just because two sets of data show a correlation, it does not mean that one causes the other. So, for example, we have this chart that shows the sales of organic foods and the number of individuals diagnosed with autism. As you can see, they are both rising. The correlation coefficient is 0.9. This is a strong positive correlation. However, autism does not cause an increase in organic food sales, nor do organic food sales cause an increase in autism. These things do not cause each other. So this is a correlation with no causation. There is usually other factors at play. So for example, we're comparing the years 1998 to 2008. The organic food movement wasn't in full swing yet. That's a more recent thing. Also, autism was not as readily diagnosed until recent years. So two outside factors potentially caused these increases in numbers. Just because two things are related does not mean that one causes the other. For example, again, over 2 million Americans exposed to drinking water will die this year. Correlation does not imply causation. Okay, we have some videos here that help to explain the difference between correlation and causation. We have some put out by individuals. This one is the extra deleted material from the movie Freakonomics, which has a lot of good economic data in there, and they do a really good job of explaining correlation versus causation. You have the Khan Academy video on correlation and causation. Here's a video on how to tell the difference between correlation and causation. And here's a nice video that talks about the correlation between global warming and pirates. And hopefully those will help.